Have you ever hated being human? Going to work? Paying taxes? Have you ever opened a biology textbook and flipped to that one picture of the fish crawling out of the water and said, You did this to me. I despise you. If I were in your position, I could have done it better. Then, do I have the game for you? Spore is often remembered as the bastard older brother of the more popular game, The Sims, and this description is fairly accurate. But this isn't about The Sims, this is about evolution, or something to justify talking about this game. So, to give a little background information, Spore is a game that is loosely inspired by this thing called life. You, the player, act as a great overseer watching over your chosen species throughout the millennia from their humble beginnings as a single-cell organisms to becoming the apex predators of the planet and developing societies of their own. Unfortunately, despite popular belief, this game is generally entertainment first, realism second, but that doesn't mean that this is entirely baseless. Without further ado, let's get started. In the beginning, there was nothing. And then, there was Creature. This here is our Creature. Look at him. Appreciate him. Love him with all your heart. Forfeit all mortal possessions to him. He is magnificent. Anyways, our little friend has just come into existence and only has one thing on his mind: to consume everything in his path. As a carnivore, our pal needs to eat the famous meat molecule to grow, and so he does. But as he will soon see, life is not all primordial ooze and free meat molecules. Life is a constant competition to be the very best like no one ever was, and soon our friend will face that harsh reality. As he grows, he encounters more complex and dangerous competitors, and so he is forced to change and overcome these challenges. Well, not necessarily him, but instead his offspring. Many prokaryotes, such as bacteria and archaea, and a few eukaryotes use what are called plasmids to store their genetic information separately from their normal DNA. These plasmids are small, circular, double-stranded DNA molecules. What makes plasmids special is that, as mentioned, they are independent of the normal cellular DNA. It is also much more resistant to changes in the environment, allowing it to avoid degradation much longer after the cell dies. The most fascinating part is that if an organism with plasmids dies, other cells with plasmids can take in the plasmids of the dead cell and integrate parts into their own through a process called transformation. A real-life example of this is antibiotic resistance genes in bacteria. Humans also use their big brains to create synthetic plasmids that can make bacteria produce insulin. This is how our little fella is going to reach the top of the primordial ooze food chain. Through the death of ourselves, we can pick up traits that can help our creature perform better and reach new heights. And so, through many trials, some ending in grief and some ending in triumph, our little friend's descendants grew enough that they began developing a brain. A cool thing this game has is this timeline that you can view at any time to see how your creature developed and grew throughout the game, and your playstyle affects your options later in the game. It's relatively simple in the first stage of the game. Eating meat/killing other cells moves you down, while eating plants moves you up. You see, when I came up with this idea, I planned on becoming an omnivore to most closely compare it to our real evolution, and I definitely remembered and accounted for this as I played. Oh. Now that our creature has conquered the cellular world through their ruthless consumption over hundreds of millions of years, they are ready to ascend to the terrestrial world. But first, it is up to me to get them that beach bod that will make their appearance truly memorable to all who witness it. Voila. The creature stage of the game is a much more fleshed out version of the first stage of the game, with much more variety in possible creatures and mechanics. This section of the game offers two paths for your species to take: a predatory route, where you hunt down and wipe out any opposing species, or opposingly, a social route, where your species impresses another species and develops a mutualistic relationship where the two assist each other in survival. Either way, the traits of this stage function a lot more as a linear path. The more you use a trait to assist in your species' survival, the more likely you will be to unlock a more developed version of that trait. In the case of our species, I focused on a predatory path where I often fought other species for food, and in some cases, self-defense. As a result, I unlocked a more powerful jaw, sharper claws, and more poisonous spit for the species to use more effectively. Essentially, this is the process and function of natural selection. In life, organisms are in a constant struggle of survival. There's a good chance that many of them will die every day. This means that those with traits that are most beneficial to survival are more likely to survive, and therefore reproduce. Over hundreds of generations, thousands or even millions of years, a species can change as mutations that enhance the trait that is most beneficial becomes the norm, and those mutants will survive more as a result. Alternatively, if an organism doesn't meet the standards to survive in the changing environment, they may not be able to last as a species, leading to some going completely extinct. The last stage of the game that I'm going to mention is the tribal stage. Although by this point of the game, our species is no longer evolving themselves, their technology and ideas evolve instead. Although not biological, evolution applies to technology just as much as it does to organisms. Throughout history, humans have evolved their technology and way of thinking to advance as a species. May it be for something like irrigation for agriculture, drills to improve construction, or weapons to increase their odds in warfare. In the same way, humans have also evolved mentally through philosophy, literature, art, science, math, etc. This is encapsulated best through the tribal stage of the game, where your species learns to fight or befriend other tribes through the development of new weapons or tools, respectively. Although I would love to say that this game is a perfect representation of how evolution functions in the real world, I would be lying. Despite that, I hope that this gives a more in-depth look on how Spore can be argued as a semi-realistic evolution simulator. And one more thing before I go. I know you must be bursting at the seams to try the game for yourself, but I would highly advise against it. Spore is a 16-year-old buggy mess. This project ended up being so much more difficult than it should have been because of how many times I lost saved data and footage due to frequent game breaking glitches and crashes. Despite the many problems this game has, there are some things that set it apart. I didn't mention it at the start of the video, but Spore has an online database where other people can upload their creatures into your game, many of which making it. But at the end of the day, this is a biology project, not a game review. I hope that I made some good points. Goodbye.